listening to the Straight to Video podcast with Rob Lane.
Hey, how's it going out there? I hope you're well, and thanks for choosing to listen to my Straight to Video podcast. I'm your host, Rob Lane, and today I get to welcome Murphy Karges to the show to chat all about his career as a bass player, but also his new book, Basics For Bassists, or How to Not Suck at Playing Bass, something I to this day could certainly benefit from. Murphy checks in from his studio out on West Coast, USA, and you may well know him from his time in the uber-successful rock band Sugar Ray. Murphy was an integral part of the band from their formation back when they were known as the Shrinky Dinks, through to their worldwide success with hits such as Fly and Every Morning. Now, whilst I was well aware of Sugar Ray, even seeing them live back in Canada in the early 2000s, it was during lockdown I stumbled across Murphy's YouTube channel, where he was going through every single Sugar Ray song in order, doing play-alongs on bass, as well as giving background stories to each song. It was pretty awesome to watch. Not only that, he now gives some superb bass tutorials and insights, which, if you're a bass player yourself, then I urge you to check them out. This all comes together in his new book, Basics For Bassists, which is available to order now from murphykarges.com. And after getting a preview copy, I can assure you that it's a treasure trove of information, whether you're new or old to playing the bass guitar. As always, this Straight to Video podcast is proudly presented to you in association with Affinity Photo, an incredible piece of photo editing software which I've been using for graphic design the past couple of years. Affinity Photo, I use it all the time to create the podcast episode artwork you see each week with the cool video covers, and it's an extremely affordable alternative to other programs on the market, so please check them out at affinity.serif.com. Alright, let's do this. I've been wanting to get Murphy on the show for a long time now, so happy to report it was well worth the wait. He shares some great stories from playing the bass, the early magic of Sugar Ray, our mutual love and respect for Michael Anthony of Van Halen, and lots more. So please, sit back and enjoy my Straight to Video chat with Murphy Karges.
Yo.
Got you. How you doing, man?
Doing good. I see you got your bass in the background. I got my bass right here.
There you go. Well, one of them you could call a bass. I've got my jazz bass. This monstrosity here is my BC Rich Warlock, which I use for a Poison tribute band.
Looks like a BC Rich. That's awesome, man. You got to have the BC Rich.
It actually plays really well. I was surprised. Just ordered one, like really cheap one. And I was like, damn, this plays and feels really good.
Go figure, man.
So how's things? I love the t-shirt.
Good, man. Yeah, right. I'm rocking the 80s right now.
Yes. First up, I want to say thank you for all the amazing content you've been putting out over the past few years through YouTube and social media. I don't even know how I stumbled on it, your channel. It must have just been recommended at some point. And it was during the time you were going through literally every Sugar Ray bass line, playing along, sharing stories from the recording of them. I mean, such an amazing body of work. Right there. How was that old journey for you going back to those songs? I mean, I guess some had never even been played live, and were there some which were like perhaps not even played through top to bottom because you perhaps build them in the studio? Was that a fun experience?
When I started the YouTube channel, I'm like, okay, because I kind of like projects, you know? I'm like, am I going to start doing just a bunch of random videos? Why don't I do something that has a real project feel where I can really just sink teeth into doing it? And I go, well, why don't I just do every song we ever did? That would be pretty cool. Because a lot of those songs we never even played live. And it wound up being like 90 songs. That was every song we ever put out. And it was fun because I had to go through stuff I hadn't ever even learned myself. Our band was interesting. You know, we would actually mix instruments and switch. We were down with that idea. We weren't like, oh no, I'm the bass player. Every bass is always played by me. That wasn't how we did it. We were like of the thought that, you know what? If somebody can play a bass line, here's the bass. Hand me the guitar, I'll do a little thing.
Adds a different flavor.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's an openness that I think we had in our band that was good. So it was fun for me to go through in that Sugar Ray songs in order. Every song we ever did, starting with the first one, which was really unique because also, you know, Rob, you don't do a song in order. Like sometimes the best song or your hit was the last one written. So it was fun to just do the sequential order of every song, starting with Snug Harbor, a song that we didn't even play, you know, it's just a loop. It was really fun to do that journey and talk about every tune because I think there's 3 versions of a song. I've always said this. It's the version you write. And when you record it, it changes a little bit. then when you play it live, it changes a little bit too.
Just how cool, though, especially for someone wanting to, I mean, it's how I learn cover songs now. I head to YouTube. But I mean, especially for someone wanting to learn a favorite song, say something like Fly or Every Morning, they can learn it from the guy who played in the band.
100%. You know what's cool was that during the pandemic, a few people went on wherever, Facebook or Instagram, and were doing videos. I saw John Taylor. Did you see John Taylor?
In like his library.
I go, that's so cool. I had done mine before that, but that made me go, this is so cool. This is what we should do. If you record, records and songs, you should try to show people if you have the time, if you want to. And also, I remember Paul Gray from The Damned did really cool version of Wait for the Blackout, just sitting with this Rickenbacker. I don't know where he was, but that was a few years ago, probably around the same time, or that might have actually been earlier. I'm not sure the date of that, but that might have been the thing that inspired me. And so I'm like, no way, that's so cool. It's such a killer bass line. It is such a killer bass line. The way he plays it's so unique. So it is really fun to hear. There's something about the original person playing it. There's something cool about seeing that happen.
Was you already on this, I want to call it this path at that point, to giving something back to, let's say, the bass community and pass on your knowledge and advice? Or was it through doing these songs and you saw the reaction that you saw, oh, things have like grown from there onwards?
No, I wasn't on the path and I was off the road and our band kind of fell apart. And so I didn't want to play live for some reason. I actually put my guitars away. It was kind of it was a situation. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do. I put my guitars away for 4 years. I got into cameras and I'm like, I don't want to play music because it was just this weird taste in my mouth. It wasn't what I got started in music for in the first place. It should be about passion and love and happiness and getting, there's hard work too. It's not all fun and games, but it turned into something weird. And so I'm like, I don't want anything to do with it. And then I got back into it again because my kids started to play. They were in like middle school now and they're like, oh, we want to be in a band. We want to do the talent show. And I go, well, I mean, the talent show, you better do your work. And then they go, will you help? I go, well, I'm going to make you work because I take it seriously too. As much as I say it should be fun, I take it very seriously. And so that pulled me back in. After the distaste of the lawsuit dissolved, I still didn't want anything to do with music. It was just weird for me. And so that was pure and that pulled me back in that my kids wanted to play. And I go, okay, we're going to get suits. You're going to wear Converse, low tops. You're going to play your ass off. You get boom, boom. So I worked with them in the garage. And that turned into me teaching because I wanted to help my kids play. And so that was a cool way to get back into it.
Did they win?
They did. Well, you know what? I got to say, it wasn't a contest. It was just like a show. But I will say they got a standing ovation and they got a request to do it again.
That's a win right there.
Total win. The principal comes up and goes, play it again. I think they did like the Ramones Blitzkrieg Bop or something. And they're like, play it again, man. I'm like, that's a win. I was so stoked. I was so stoked at that point. I mean, and you hear people say this, you're like, hey, are you really as stoked as when you got your gold record? It seems like a lie, but I understand that. You have a kid in the world and you see them do something really cool. It's pretty awesome. And so I understand that. And when I saw them, it was a really, really cool feeling. It was kind of the same feeling of like accomplishing something really cool. Like when we were handed our gold records in the back of the tour bus the very first time, it was pretty special. It's just fun to see kids having a good time, expressing themselves through music. And that kind of lit a fire.
Are they still playing?
No, they're not.
They peaked straight away. They peaked.
Yeah, they broke up. They're getting back together. Their lawyers getting done. That's the fun thing about school. That's what's great about just stuff like that is that they come together and then they have those great talent shows or whatever. But no, so they played together for a little while. They did do some shows and they had fun and they were really, really good actually. But no, they kind of just moved on to other stuff.
The videos on YouTube, it's led on to a couple of new ventures for you. The Bass Players Facebook group, which is really cool and growing. And also your new book, Basics for Bassists. It's a mouthful.
And it's a twister.
Or how not to suck at playing bass.
Yeah.
Was that fun to put together? And did you approach it from a specific angle? I mean, because your approach to it, you make things so clear and there's always something to learn. So what angle was you approaching it from?
I appreciate it. It was born out of actually a weird situation. Something happened that wasn't really great in my life. And so I find myself in this new kind of place and I'm like, I have to do something right now. I have to do something good. And so out of this weird situation, I found myself writing this book. I always wanted to write a book. I always fantasized about it. I've always written. I've kept tour journals forever. I tried to write a book about the band many years ago about Sugar Ray, and that kind of failed. But I have some really good chapters from it. But I was trying to write on too long of a span, I think. I was trying to write over the full 20 years of our band. And I'm happy that that failed, my first attempt at writing a Sugar Ray book, because now if I write one, it's going to be way better. So Basics for Bassists, I got to say it slowly. it came about in this funny time in my life a couple years ago. And I thought it actually was going to be a video series. Because you're right, I started helping people. I started teaching. I had a music school. I was doing band things. And then this thing in my life happens, and I'm like, I really want to do something now. I have time. And so I started writing it out, and I realized actually the YouTube channel did, when you get the book and read the intro, it kind of explains this. The YouTube channel did kind of prompt the book a little bit because I realized, as you say, you've been playing bass a long time. You shred on bass too. And I have been playing a long time. But I realized after teaching people, because I didn't know how to teach, I just played. It's funny, I'm listening to Dave Grohl's audiobook, the book that he released a little while back. And he realized when Dave Grohl was teaching his daughter, he's like, oh man, I don't know how to teach drums. I just played them. Because there's actually an insight to teaching. Even if it's a simple thing like, here, shoot a basketball. Well, there's a few things you got to do. Or kick a football or kick a soccer ball or whatever. So there's these mechanics and things that you can teach that are separate from doing it. It's why Tiger Woods still has a swing coach today. Literally, Tiger Woods has a swing coach because when he's here, guess what? He can't see this position right here. So it was a joy to write. And out of the YouTube channel, I realized this was the big realization for me was that we want to play music, right? I don't want to just play and slap and shred on my own. I want to play the songs. Beatles, my first love, and they got me into music and I love songs. So I realized through my YouTube, and when I was doing this thing, I thought it was a video series, that literally all you got to do is figure out 3 parts. Basically, thousands of songs are just like 3 parts, max. Maybe 4, rarely, sometimes 2, sometimes 1. So I'm like, wow, if I could just teach people that you only have to learn 3 parts.
Break it down to that, yeah.
Yeah.
It suddenly becomes a lot less intimidating in a way.
3 parts. And the good news is that these parts might just have 2 notes and then they share some notes. So we're only talking about maybe 6 notes. So I'm like, oh my, okay, I need to give people that information because when I'm teaching them here and then they want tabs or they want tabs online, show me the line, memorize it. But if I could teach them more than memorizing, if I could teach them how to understand how songs break apart into pieces, you go, oh, I can put this back together. This is a song. I know what this does. It's better than memorizing. So that became the thing I started writing. And the book was originally called The 3-Part Method. It's a bad title, but that was my inspiration was like, I want to show people how to comprehend, have a good comprehension for songs, to really understand what that song's doing. Oh, I know what that song's doing. So the book is my journey to help people learn a little bit of, got to learn some skill. We got to learn how to play this thing here called bass. This little guy right here. You got to learn to like put your hand on it and do some stuff. But ultimately, we're playing music, man. We're playing songs. My book isn't about reading a lot of music. It's about getting to play, and then let's listen to songs and understand them. So it was born a little bit out of the YouTube channel, born a little bit out of a situation I was in where I had some time. And I really think that your setting, if you're stuck, your setting can have a lot to do with getting stuff done. It's a weird revelation I had during the book, but it can really help if you change your setting.
I'm sure you cover similar things in the book. You recently did a video about 10 tips to elevate your bass playing, and it's not all theory and practical stuff. It also covers things like shutting down negativity, also the importance of getting out there and playing live with friends, because I think that really has to be drilled home nowadays, because so many young players perhaps just want to play on YouTube, which is great, but there's nothing like playing live. I can almost understand, like, why do I want to take all these amps in a car or get all that hassle to go to a rehearsal room and all when I could just be famous on YouTube? But I mean, there's nothing like playing live and getting out there and that connection. I'm sure all that's covered in the book.
I agree. And it's great that YouTube is here. I love YouTube. You know, Justin Bieber was famously discovered on it, like literally grew up on it. It's fantastic that you can share your stuff easier now. It's the greatest. However, yeah, I just think there's a huge part of music that is not taught that is up here. It's almost like, I don't know if it's coaching is the word, but you have to learn skill. We have to learn how to play. You know, and the fingers are going to hurt and all that when we first started. But beyond that, I mean, there's a big element to like, I don't know that I'm good enough. I don't know if I should. I don't know if, man, they're going to laugh at me. Man, I want to live in those moments. I would love to coach people out of those moments where I would say, I could prove to you you're going to be good enough. I'll prove to you have rhythm. I'll prove to you that you're creative. And I'll prove to you that you have something important to say. Literally. So that's what I really am passionate about is the other side of all this theory and reading and scales and tapping and modes. That's not where I'm at. I'm at, let's get you playing some pretty good bass. Let's work on your timing is so important. Your pocket is really important too. But beyond that, I love to think and teach or talk about the mental side and getting out there too. For me, it's a 3-pronged thing. It's skill, it's mental, and it's your outreach, meaning you got to learn to play. You got to be good enough. Then where's your attitude at? Where are your practice habits at? All those things are really important. And I learned it through the band that would you think in a rock band that you would learn about punctuality in a rock band? You understand professionalism, even though it's funny. We used to say you get in a band to avoid business. Then if you're successful, you better get really good at business or you're going to get robbed blind. I thought that was insightful because we're like, wait a minute, where's that money going over there? What's $500 fax cost? So it's the skill. You got to work on your mindset and you got to work on your outreach or your gigs, meaning you can have a great skill set. You can have a great positive, I'm good, I feel good. But where is your gigging? Where is your connecting with humans? Where is your connectivity and your outreach? I think those three things are where I'm at. That's my holy trinity of teaching bass and trying to get people inspired to shred the four string.
You're putting all this stuff out there and people are watching it and learning and stuff. Was there anyone in your local area who you thought was cool or offered you advice back in the day?
I just thought it was the coolest looking thing because everybody wanted to play guitar. In what reality does someone see a rock show? What do they say when they go away? They say, I want to play guitar. They don't say, I want to play bass. Part of that is because a stringed instrument can get lumped in as a guitar, which is true. But I love the fact that it's a little bit overlooked. I love the fact that just the bass itself is sort of like an oddity. Oh, are you a failed guitarist? Or, no, I love this weird bass. I just think it's cool. And people that inspired me, I was inspired by music. I was inspired by Led Zeppelin. I was inspired by the Beatles. My first inspiration was actually my parents' record collection. It was a fantastic record collection. It had heaviness in Zeppelin. My dad had a lot of rock stuff. My mom had a lot of great stuff. Joni Mitchell, James Taylor, Elton John, Cat Stevens, some killer music. And that's what really got me going was that it was a very early thing. I just fell in love with music. Obviously, bass wasn't around yet. It was just in my brain. Music is great. And then, fast forward to 15, it's one thing that really affected me, I saw a magazine, it was called Action Now. And it was this magazine, the first magazine to cover surfing, skating, and skiing and music. It was really cool because everything was skateboarder or skiing magazine or surfer magazine. They were separate.
This was a lifestyle magazine.
Yeah. First one to combine sports. Nobody was doing it yet. And then in one photo, I remember there was some punker with spiked hair. He was sticking his bass, yeah. And it was a photograph of that. Butt end of the bass jammed into the camera. And I'm I don't know what that is, but that's bitchin'. I want that thing. Then I go, man, The Clash. I fell in love with The Clash. The Dead Kennedys, Devo, B-52s. And then that was it. It was alternative and it was weird and cool. And so weird four-string instrument.
This is all 80s new wave punk rock, but being out in California, there was the huge hard rock explosion. I know Mark was intertwined in some of that and friends with a lot of those bands. Was there anything on your radar towards the end of the 80s when you're in the Shrinkadinks together and just starting out?
Oh yeah, we love metal, dude. I love Van Halen. Van Halen 1.
It's Michael Anthony, dude.
Yeah. Bomb. He's actually a really good bass player.
He is phenomenal.
If you listen to the records, there's some really good stuff going on. And case in point, when I want to talk about teaching, that is other things. It's not just your skill. Remember, I said that to you. It's about your mental. It's also about your intangibles. I didn't say that too. Okay, what do you mean? Well, in the book, I talk about other things you bring to the table. You don't just bring yourself to the table. Hi, I'm just me. Literally, you bring your truck if you want to move gear. You bring your personality. You bring singing. So these are the intangibles. Michael Anthony, what a singer. That guy's harmonies in the band were a trademark sound. And I'll tell you, go listen to So This Is Love live, a video of it in Oakland, I think 81. And man, that dude is shredding. And I bring that up in the book also, that bass players, you can kind of break them down, into two categories, busy and more simple. Right? That's a simplified version, but people kind of think of it Les Claypool, he's a busy bass player. Fleet, busy bass player. Michael Anthony, he's a simple bass player. And I say that in that group of simple, I actually put Bill Wyman in there. I'm I can't leave Bill Wyman in there. He's so amazing, but he's considered to be not this, Steve Harris type of guy. So I say in this group of simple bass players, they could probably play well. They just choose to for the song and for the band.
I love Michael Anthony's playing. He's got so many different facets to his playing, the early stuff on the albums. I listened to it and I'm holy shit, this is amazing. Then the later stuff, especially I was late to the party with Van Halen and got into him for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge was when I really deep dived.
Oh, wow. Wow. Later. Yeah.
I knew the hits and stuff, but Van Halen weren't the band in the UK that they were in America.
Right. They were so big here for us.
Yeah.
We just loved them. Yeah. Early on. Yeah.
Early 90s, when I had stuff like Pound Cake, he's just thumping along and it just sounds monstrous. And he brings so much happiness and energy to that stage.
You just said it. That's another intangible. Again, it's really important for people to understand that I'll say it over. It's not your skill only, man. It's not just who shreds on YouTube. It's about what you bring in a room. You just said it. Do you bring joy? You could light up a room. You could be the glue. Bass players, we are glue. I mean, if you think about what a bass does, it kind of glues chords together and glues the rhythm and the thing. It also can affect the melody a little bit. But you're right. What do you like in a room? Michael Anthony is just he's all joy. I love look at his Instagram post. He's like, I'm in Cabo again, hanging out with Sammy. Michael Anthony is the greatest. His attitude, have you ever seen him salty and angry? I haven't. I'm sure he does, but he doesn't share that. So I love that you're bringing up that he's just a joy to be around, because I'm telling you, kids and anybody else, if you want to be a professional bass player and get hired to do gigs and do stuff, man, it's a real deal. You go live together in a bus. There's situations where your vibe in the room will be important. So figure out a way to be a good presence, whatever that is. You don't have to be a loudmouth. You don't have to be a funny guy cracking jokes. You could just be a really, really solid person that people love to be around. And maybe you solve problems. Again, it's your intangibles. So important. So I love it. Yeah, good stuff.
Talking about being in a room with somebody, you've spoken before about a certain magic you'd not experienced before when you all got in a room together back in the Shrinkadinks days. Had you planned what you were going to play that first time, or was you just like figuring out what songs you all knew in that first rehearsal?
I think we kicked a couple around before coming in. Stan was the early leader in the band. He was the early manager. He booked us gigs. He was the responsible one. He had like a car. There were no cell phones back then, but he had like a little black book of like numbers he could call. And so I think I spoke with him. I didn't know who Mark was. The first rehearsal, we all met at the beach.
First rehearsal, met at the beach. That's like so un-English.
Yeah. Right. Well, it was about 2 blocks from the Sand, 1 block from Jack in the Box, this fast food over here. It was this little tiny rental place. Actually, it wasn't tiny, but yeah, it was a small little rental and a tiny little room we went into. It was so loud, man. Our ears were screaming after, but it was magic when we played. Literally, we went ba, 2, ba, ba. And something kinetic, wires ran through us, lightning bolts ran through us, and there was something really magical that happened. Chemistry is real, and we were just like, whoa. I felt something. It was incredible. You know, Mark's hair was flying. I'd never seen a singer like that. My singers were always introverted and like trippy, and like Mark was just like rocking, hair flying, cross between like, you know, Johnny Lydon and like David Lee Roth at once.
Yes.
You know, David Lee Roth, but angry and hair flying, you know. And then Stan was always on the cymbals. Rod was cool. I was doing my thing, and it was just this chemistry is real. So if you can have chemistry with somebody, or you can find it, honor it and do your best to maintain it. It doesn't come around easily. So thank your lucky stars that you found it with somebody, and do your best.
One thing that Sugar Ray experienced, once you got signed, you'd already done the great video for Caboose and later released Mean Machine from your debut album. But that record didn't hit big. And in today's world, you'd have probably been dropped. But that was at a time when a label would let an artist develop. I mean, do you think that's a scary prospect for new bands and musicians today? And maybe wonder, I always think this, what great music have we missed because of that?
Yeah. It's funny because it's all perspective. So you're right. That almost got dropped then, I'm sure. And you could interview everybody in the band and even label people and go, you know, what happened on that first record? Well, actually, before you get signed, that's a success. It sold like, 50,000 or 60,000 copies or something. That's like, we sold 50,000 copies?
That's unreal.
75,000 copies?
People went to a store and brought those copies as well.
I think it'd be cool to sell 50. Because, you could make your family buy about 20, but when you sold, or like 100. But anyway, so it's a record deal. It's not the same as just like on your own. So yeah, it makes sense to say that were we close to getting dropped, because back then, that's not a lot of records. However, it was kind of enough to maybe go, okay, maybe. And one of the reasons why I think we hung around was that we were signed by Doug Morris. the label boss in New York City, not an A&R guy from LA or New York or somewhere. We were signed in a unique way. So they're like, that's Doug's thing. Yeah, just let it go. Maybe they said that. And the fact that we actually made a little noise in Europe. When we would go over there, we had really good reception. Our numbers were pretty decent. We were selling some records and the club turnout was pretty decent. So maybe they thought there was a little flicker of something, but yeah, it's true. That was a time when you could develop yourself a little bit. You didn't need to just be a hit right out of the box. How do you even do that? You have to have time to develop.
Unless you're Van Halen.
Yeah, right. Or Jeff Buckley or Kurt Cobain, the geniuses that everything they ever made, even the crappy demos we find are brilliant. But yeah, good point that back then there was a little time to develop. And true, also, what stuff have we missed? That's a really good point. Think about it. If we would have been dropped, Fly would not exist. I'm not saying Fly is some Under Pressure or Imagine song, You're Blown in the Wind by Dylan. It's just a song that though people love, though, they love it. Some people had their first kiss to it, or they held their first hand, they got their heart broken. So in a way, it is an important song.
It's a time machine song for a lot of people.
It is, and I'm grateful for that. And it's a good point. What music have we missed because people weren't able to stay at it and stay patient and keep going and push that fear aside? Maybe it's brought on by themselves, like I said, like, oh, I shouldn't keep doing it. I should just go get that job. What's the use? Those are understandable feelings and we all have them. But if you want to do something, if you want to make something great, you have to keep risking failure. That's the whole point. Failure is a weird thing. You're not really failing if you're going for it and it's not working. They said about Thomas Edison, it was so brilliant. You failed 10,000 times to make your light bulb. No, I didn't. I just found out 10,000 ways it won't work. That's the ultimate. Is there any expression in the world of positivity more than a guy who failed at something 10,000 times and saw the bright side? No, I don't think there is.
You mentioned coming to Europe just then. How was your first trips to the UK? Do you remember much? I think you did a one-off show in London in February 96.
Borderline.
Right? And then came back for a full tour in May. Do any memories jump to mind when you first came over? Was it exciting for the band to be coming to the UK where a lot of your heroes were from?
Hell yeah. Great memories. It was so fun. I mean, it was fun for us just to go to Cleveland or Nevada or Texas or Florida. Imagine going to London. It was so fun. And we all were of that mindset. We were so grateful to be doing it. It was so much fun. So many of our favorite bands are from, they're all from over there, actually. I mean, what bands are from America that are like The Who, The Stones, The Beatles, Zepp? I mean, it just goes on and on. I mean, I mentioned some James Taylor. There's a lot of yacht rock that I love that is truly our own, but it was a thrill. And the first gig was, we played at the Borderline. It was like a press thing where they invite all the press, the label sets that up. And it was really fun. We had our fun. We were drinking pints in the courtyard in the middle of the day. Like, yeah, we were just fired up, young, ready to rock, ready to kill it. And it was a blast.
Didn't you do Every Morning on Top of the Pops in 1989?
We did, man. Yeah, we did. And it's funny because we always think that Europe liked our harder rocking stuff better. When we were playing Fly, they're like, where's Mean Machine? My Mean Machine. What's this soft song? Not everywhere. That's a cliche, but we loved it, man. I made this statement. I'm like, everything over there is a little bit more like the cigarettes tasted stronger. The Coca-Cola it was heavier, a little more syrup. The beers were stronger. Everything was stronger, I felt like. America, it's all fucking watered down. We have our good stuff. We have our, best Mexican food in the world, all kinds of stuff. And so, I don't know if it had anything to do with it, but I realized that we thought, man, they like our harder shit. Let's keep playing Mean Machine. But we did do Top of the Pops. That was fun to do that. That was a thrill because I remember hearing about that show, not when I was a kid, but I remember hearing about it for a long, long time. And it was an iconic show. And I'm like, oh, we got a lip sync? They always lip sync on that? Has Top of the Pops always 100% been lip sync forever?
I'm surprised you lip synced that late in the 90s because there was a point where the band's always mimed, but the singers sang.
Maybe we did live vocals or something. I'm not sure. But I know we weren't playing our instruments. And I understand that shows are like that. They want it to sound really good and the setup, there's issues that can happen with audio. So I totally get it. I'm not salty on that. They have you do that everywhere a lot, actually. We did all kinds of shows. I mean, I remember actually the weirdest time we ever lip synced, which was so bizarre, which was when 9/11 happened. We were actually in Spain doing a TV show. And we found out that morning, it was so bizarre to see these images on a screen when we were meeting in the lobby to go to a taping. And we're like, are we actually going to go on a show? Looks like our country is burning to the ground. And it was kind of early. We saw the couple things happen and we went. and we were all like heavy hearts. And we went, and the show was watching it too, the people behind the scenes. And, we didn't know if it would end quickly or was going to keep, we didn't know. And so, but it was weird. We actually did, when it's over, lip synced. It was like the worst time I'd ever lip synced because it was like, what are we doing this fucking lip syncing for when our country is in peril? But I understand you got to do your thing. My point was that I understand lip syncing happens and it's for the show and you can say no and go, no, we're not going to appear. I bet some artists have gone, F that.
Have you ever seen the Kurt Cobain clip from Top of the Pops?
He just plays nonsense, right?
Yeah, he plays like with his hand like that and he sings in like about 5 octaves too low, almost eating the microphone.
Yeah, that's so interesting, man. Yeah, he would push back against, it's funny because it's so odd, you put a record out and you get really popular and that popularity becomes so much that you push back on it. But I understand it because his personality, when you're in a band, you're kind of just going along for the ride. You do your music and you're cruising, you're going along. You're not prepared. We filled a tiny, tiny bit of people like you and all that kind of stuff. Have some screaming people, the crowd, and be on MTV and all that and be on the radio all the time. But you can't imagine what he was feeling, especially a guy that probably didn't like it or I don't know whether it didn't feel deserved inside him. Anyway, but yeah, he would always do that, wouldn't he? He would thrash and he would mess up Smells Like Teen Spirit a lot. He would play that weird or really fast, like pushing back against success is interesting. It's not really pushing back against success. It's just, I don't know what this is. I'm not ready for it. I just wanted to play music.
It's almost like, I guess you've had all that creativity to create something that's totally honest to you. Then all of a sudden you put in a box and you're having rules laid out to you. I don't know if that's something to do with it. I have no idea. Murphy, I don't want to keep you too long. I just want to fire one last question at you. Sugar Ray have been linked to quite a few movies and soundtracks, featuring on the Escape from LA soundtrack, and you actually appeared on screen in Father's Day with Robin Williams and also the Scooby-Doo movie. So if you could, I want you to time travel a little to a Friday night in the late 80s or early 90s, and you head into the video store. What movie soundtrack would you have on your Walkman, and what 3 tapes would you rent for the weekend? Does the T-shirt give it a clue? I don't know.
Breakfast Club is going to be one movie I'll watch. Let's go. I got you for 2 whole weeks, Bender. Love this movie.
Still holds up.
It does. I made this and I wear it around and everybody goes, great shirt. Can I buy it? I'm like, I made it. I should start selling these. Maybe I'll put like the bass player, something about, I don't know. Anyways.
The thing is we start to relate more to the teacher and the caretaker later on down.
That's funny. Good point. So soundtracks. I actually like the soundtrack Platoon. It's very weird. But if you're talking 80s, I was blown away at Adagio for Strings. That movie blew my mind. I didn't understand that young kids had to go to the horrors of war. And it was the heaviest movie to me. It made me go, what am I doing with my life? Because this is gnarly and these kids had to do this crazy thing. So what am I doing? That movie and that song was just mind-blowing to me. It was one of the most beautiful pieces of orchestration ever written, Adagio for Strings. And then it had some great stuff on it, like, Smokey Robinson and some other great classic tunes.
That made a perfect trailer with Tracks of My Tears on there.
Exactly. So Platoon is one. It's a little weird. It's not, I don't know if it's hip, but Platoon was a soundtrack that blew my mind. The next soundtrack that blew my mind, probably 92. Now I'll move into the 90s. This is it's a dark movie too. Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me. Angelo Badalamenti, man. I am just like, what is this music? It is reverberating in my soul, and I need to figure out who this human is. Angelo Badalamenti is a genius and amazing. And The Pink Room was a song that totally blew me away. This weird, go listen to The Pink Room. It had a bass and he was playing a bow with it, I think. And this heavy reverb on the drums, just the weirdest music I'd ever heard in my life. I'll throw one more soundtrack in there, The Crow. Love The Crow soundtrack.
30 years old this year. Wow.
That soundtrack was killer, man. It had Rage Against the Machine, 9 Inch Nails. It had some great stuff on it. So I would go Platoon, Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me, and The Crow. Kind of dark, weird soundtracks. And then movies. I got to take Breakfast Club because I got to get into the light, fun pop of the 80s. I got to go Breakfast Club. I'm probably going to do Back to the Future and one more movie, huh?
What movie have you introduced to your boys over the years?
Well, this isn't 80s, but man, they know I'm a Grease fanatic. I love the movie Grease, man. And I crush them with Grease and with this movie. Just because of Danny's walk and his leather. Dude, he's the coolest looking dude in that. If you think about it, killer pompadour black hair, leather jacket, flames coming out of cars, racing. I'm like, in my book, one of my favorite bass players, I talk about influences. I'll tell you, one of them was Pete Farndon from the Pretenders. huge Pretenders fan. I think that he doesn't get spoken of enough. I have Paul Jones in there, Sir Paul McCartney. I have my legends, but Pete Farnon doesn't get spoken about enough. His lines were so killer. He was one of the first bass players that I ever saw that I'm like, that's the coolest dude I've ever seen in my life. Triumph, leather jacket, big pompadour black hair, white. He usually had a white Fender P bass, which was odd. You didn't see what you saw the sunburst a lot or the orange. He would play the white bass. And Danny from Grease reminds me of Pete Farnon from the Pretenders. So I got to go Grease. I got to go Back to the Future. I got to go Breakfast Club, Platoon, Twin Peaks, The Crow.
Man, that's a night right there. That's a weekend. I love it.
You got laughter. Then you get some heavy, weird music. And you go to some laughter again. Yeah.
Superb. Murphy, thank you for chatting with me, man. I've loved that. Really enjoyed all the stories and everything you continue to put out there. Please continue. I look forward to the book when it's released.
Thanks for having me, man. Been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed chatting with you, and I'm grateful, so thank you.
Do you realize on Zoom, every time you do the thumbs up, you get like an explosion behind you?
Is that you or me? What is that?
That's you.
What? How am I doing it? I'll find out. I thought you were doing it. One more time.
Oh, there you go.
I did it again. I got to figure out what's going on. I'm going to fix that.
Massive thank you to Murphy Karges for taking time to chat with me on this week's Straight to Video podcast. I absolutely love connecting and hearing his stories. Please head on over to murphykarges.com to pick up the new book, Basics For Bassists. I urge you also to go subscribe to his wonderful YouTube page and also head on over to the new Facebook group, Songwriting for Bass Players, which is set up and connect with the great community on there. So that's all for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll come back next Friday for a brand new show. Till then, please make sure to always be kind, please rewind and unwind, and I'll speak to you all real soon.